Welcome to the video. If you clicked on this, then you are a business owner who has probably considered starting a podcast before. And I today am going to give you 10 really good reasons to start a podcast and why I think it's pretty much a good idea for 90%, if not 99% of business owners. Now, if you want more details on how to actually go about doing that, I have a course linked below and a promo code for 25% off, and it will walk you through everything you're going to need, whether you're going to hire somebody to do some of it, like the editing per se, or if you're just going to do it all yourself, which is totally fine. You can go check out the course in the link below and get 25% off by using the code down in the description. But this is going to be free resources today. I'm going to give you the 10 reasons a business owner should start a podcast. Now, we're going to start with building trust and scale. Now, what do I mean by building trust? Let's use some examples in this video. Let's say you're a realtor or a chiropractor. Okay. You're going to be operating, most of your business is going to operate off of validation and things like reviews, like chiropractors, for example. Whenever I go look at a dentistry or a chiropractor or somebody I might be using for, especially health-wise, I will go to Google or I will go to their Facebook and I will see reviews. Now, written reviews are amazing because you can really, sometimes written reviews, individually they're good, but when you get written reviews in bulk, or if like you see somebody's got 74.5-star reviews, I'm not going to go through and read them, but just like I'll read the first two, and then seeing that they have 70 people, individuals reviewing either 4.5 stars or above, that's a huge amount of validation and social proof, right? So those are great. Here's the issue with those, and it's not a big issue. Like I said, if you've got, I have 40 plus positive reviews on my channel or my Facebook page rather from my company. And it really does go a long way because I can share those reviews. People, I send people to those reviews. I'm like, hey, by the way, don't take my word for the services, go read the reviews. But what's even better than reviews is spoken word, which is why sometimes for my clients, I will pitch, hey, we should do some video testimonials. But another way to build trust is by your own spoken word, okay? Whenever you convey your own message rather than letting other people do it for you in either written form or video form or audio or whatever, and you're doing it on a regular basis, you're not only building trust, but you're scaling said trust. So a good example might be where somebody runs across one of your reels from your podcast or runs across your podcast and listens to it. And let's use the realtor example for this. And they don't necessarily need a realtor right then and there. They're not buying a house. They're not listing their house, but they hear your voice. They see what you're talking about. Like, okay, that's cool. I learned something new today. When that time does roll around for them to need that service, you're probably going to be pretty close to the top of the list whenever they start thinking about that. So that's what I'm talking about when I'm saying build trust and scale that trust. Now, to the next thing, and this is one of my favorites, position yourself as the authority. This works really well, actually, if you're in a smaller town. It works in any case, but it's almost like a small to medium town. This really works because in those types of places, not a lot of people are doing social media. Well, maybe they're doing social media, but they're definitely not talking on camera on a regular basis. And this, I have a couple clients actually that use this to their advantage because it positions them not only as the authority like in their niche or in their industry, but kind of in that town because they're the only one doing this podcast, which, let's face it, is like a talk show. Okay. It's like a local talk show, and you can have on, if you're a dentist, like you don't have to have on dentists or people to talk about teeth. You can have on the mayor. You can have on, somebody from the local school district, like incorporate just life. And as a byproduct, they're going to see, Martha the dentist podcast. Does that make sense? Like your services is almost a byproduct. Not only are you establishing yourself, and you should be mixing in, your expertise. I'm not saying don't talk about realty or dentistry or banking or whatever your business is. I'm not saying don't talk about it at all. But if you can bring in more community, not only are you going to build your authority in your niche, but you're going to build your authority in your community. And ultimately, your community is who is going to purchase your services or products. So positioning yourself like that. And I've seen this a ton with my clients, especially the ones in medium to small towns, because in those areas, there's way less people even pursuing this. So normally you're just going to go right to the top of the food chain when it comes to being like that voice of the town or the community. Create long form once and repurpose everywhere. This is a huge one, guys, because I think at this point in 2026, business owners know, and there's like a saying, right, that content is king. That's getting a little more popular. I kind of been saying that since 2018, maybe, but content is king. And they realize that, right? And what do? They pull out their cell phone and they start making content, which is great. You should not stop doing that if you are doing that. But if you are doing that, please put down in the comments below, how difficult is this? Like, there's a lot. It's not difficult. It just takes a lot of time and practice, right? Because that first time you get on camera, like me, the first time I ever made a YouTube video, it was absolutely horrendous. And I deleted that channel, by the way. But there's something that there's a couple things the podcast does for you, right? You can record, I always say, once a month. You know, if you do 2 episodes a month and just put them back to back, that's 2 hours plus, if you're doing hour-long episodes, of record time. Number one, that's going to get you incredible practice just knowing that you're on camera. You might not be looking at the camera, and that's also another benefit, is you're not looking directly at the camera, so it's more of a natural conversation. But you're getting that practice, but then you can also take that long form content and chop it up into little topics and segments to make reels out of, using a software like Opus Clip, which we use all the time for our clients. And that is going to help you make the same amount of content faster. Because if you think about it, let's just say I took 2 hours to do a podcast, which is great. And I got 20 reels from each. That's 40 reels plus the long form, plus any other snippets of video I want to take out of the podcast. How long would it take me to make the same amount of content for volume's sake, just setting up my phone and making the content? It would take a very long time. And I'm probably not going to be as natural in front of the camera. And if I do, like, I'm not saying don't stop. I'm not saying stop doing that. I'm not saying that to not do that in addition to podcasting, because podcasting is just going to be like a really good place to get your reps in. You're going to be talking for a full 2 hours, and you're going to be conscious of your words. You're going to be cutting out the ums, you know, if you're conscious of it. And as time goes on, you're going to get better and better. So that's a really big benefit, is you can almost knock out a month's worth of content in just a few hours, and then go back to your dentistry, your dentist office, or your florist shop. You can go back to what you're actually good at and what you're passionate about after the content is made. And it's kind of like you're front loading the work, get it done, and then the rest of it can be scheduled out. So that's that benefit. Strengthening relationships with clients and prospects. That's a really good one. I have a client that is a bank, and they have a podcast, and they bring on a lot of their clientele, like other business owners, community leaders, and you're leveraging not only your audience, but let's say you bring on the mayor of a town. That's going to be a certain, pretty much his audience is the town. So you're getting that whole audience, or you're bringing on the commissioner for some local, construction project, or, make up whatever example you want, but you're building those relationships because, hey, I'm flattered you brought me onto your show. We had somebody on a podcast yesterday that said to, the business owner who brought them onto the podcast, they were like, wow, I watch your show all the time, and now I'm sitting here. I feel like honored. I feel like I made it, and it's one of those medium-sized towns where, she gets a lot of views on this podcast because she's kind of the only one doing it. And if you're invited on, because she only does 2 a month, so what is that, 24 a year? She's building up those relationships, and it's kind of a flattering thing. Now, there's a double-edged sword there. You could not invite somebody on, and that could backfire on you, but you get the point of when I'm talking about strengthening relationships and prospects. So let's go on to the next one. That is going to be network with high-value guests. That kind of ties into that. I probably should have grouped those together. But let's say you don't know the person, right? Or you don't know the company you want to partner with, or the client you might want to get, and you invite them on. You're like, hey, I really like what you're doing. I would love for you to come on and tell us more about that. Could be a good way to drum up some B2B business, right? Not really good for B2C, but B2B. Market without feeling salesy. This is a huge one, okay? Because it's not salesy. Don't try to sell anything. That would actually be my suggestion with your podcast is do not try to sell anything. Like if they want something or they want to buy from you, they will. But this is not really about that. This is about making a true connection with your audience, which is your customer, right? So podcasting too, the way I try to explain it, especially for my clients who are just starting out, let's say we're shooting like their very first episode, I always say, look, this is how this is going to go. Because they will sit there and try to script it out with each other. Be like, hey, we're going to talk about this and we're going to talk about this. And I'm going to say it like this. And I go, stop. Stop talking about that. Stop talking like that, right? This is how I like to frame it. You guys are going to lunch together and I'm filming your lunch meeting. That's it. Because if you were sitting with someone at your lunch meeting and you messed up on a word, you wouldn't look over and say, can I redo that? You would just repeat yourself, or you would just keep going and wouldn't even care. So that's how I like to frame it. And that does seem to help a lot of my clients. They kind of understand that theory of like, hey, we're just having a conversation and you just happen to be filming it. And there's really no sales pitch. There's nothing like that. I usually do a call to action at the end. Like, you know, if you do want to drive them to a website or give them a call to action to call you if they need something. But really, this is about connecting with your audience, which, you know, in turn is authentic. And that's kind of what people are looking for in today's age of AI. They're looking for that authenticity. And so I always just frame it like, hey, you guys are at a lunch meeting, y'all are just hanging out, and I just happen to be filming it. And I also do this trick. This is not necessarily true, but I guess I lie to them. I don't really lie. I just say, hey, we only do one take. We do one take only. If you mess up on something so horrendously, like you forget English or the language that you speak, I mean, I can go in there and cut it out. But ideally, I'm going to cut the beginning, I'm going to cut the end, and that's it. And that's how podcasts are done. It's just, if you're just now starting this, you might not realize that. And in your head, you know, podcasts are a relatively new thing. And so we're so used to television and talk shows and, you know, the idea of scripts that we, as people just listening, because people are natural when they get into podcasting, they get good and they sound like they're scripted, but they're not. They're just having normal conversations. And you'd be surprised, you're really good at talking too when you're not thinking about a camera or a microphone. So the more you can, you know, really immerse yourself into the idea of this is just a conversation, the better. You're going to own your audience, not the algorithm. That goes into being natural, okay? Because when you're making a standalone piece of content, and I do this same thing, like I'm making ads right now for the course. By the way, if you want the course, jump down in the description. You get 25% off for watching this video. It's a course all about how to make your own podcast from start to finish, from pre-production, production, post-production, distribution. Everything you need to know is right there, and it's heavily discounted, and you're going to get 25% off. But yeah, when I'm making videos, like standalone ads for that, I am thinking about the algorithm. I've got like a hook, and I've got like, you know, a call to action, and I've got my free lead magnet, and there's just like a lot that goes into it. And that works good for ads, but it's not really great for your day-to-day content. So a podcast takes out even the thought of doing that, in my opinion. You're actually going to be authentic because you're talking to another human. And there's a lot of like comedic moments that like you would never get just talking to a camera. And sometimes those are the best things. Like my clients, some of their best performing videos and reels are of their podcast when they're talking about something funny, and it literally is just a moment that makes people smile. It has nothing to do with their business, has nothing to do with what they're selling, and it just makes people happy. It gets shares, it gets likes, it gets comments, and in turn, it raises the awareness of their business. And hard to track, but it probably does bring them more business. You can increase your brand visibility and credibility. So this one's a little bit twofold because it's going to naturally raise your brand's visibility based on consistency. That's something I don't have on here, but it's going to make your content consistent. Instead of getting my phone out and recording when I feel like it, which you should still do that, I have a set day every month that I film these podcasts, and then I use like an AI software, or I make the reels myself, and they're scheduled out. So people just get so used to seeing your stuff. And if someone likes it, the algorithm knows to show them more of your stuff. Then they like that. And it's just like a snowball effect. But being consistent is going to help increase your brand visibility, because it's just going to be something that becomes known to the algorithm and becomes known to your audience that this is something you do. Now, credibility wise, I always say it's like in today's age, if you were to go look for a business that you heard about and they don't have a website, that's a little bit forgivable nowadays in 2026. But if they don't have social media, if they don't have a Facebook page or an Instagram or something, they're pretty much just nicked. Like, I'm not hiring a landscape company that doesn't have some sort of social media, because I at least want to go look that they're active, that they're doing things, that there is a place to put reviews if people have a bad experience or a good experience, right? So it's going to raise your credibility in that way. Share your story and your mission clearly. This is a huge one. And one of my friends said it on my podcast. Savannah said it just a few days ago, and it really resonated with me and stuck with me. She said, a brand is not a logo. It's you. And I don't know, it was really profound. And I was like, oh my gosh, I really dig that. Like, that's totally true, because if you take my company, for example, in my town, I have built up a pretty good clientele base. I've built up a good reputation. I think people think it's cooler than it actually is. And my name, I've talked to my dad about this, my name is not great. Like, my company name is not very memorable. It's not catchy. It's not, if you had the yellow pages, it's not going to be in the top of the yellow pages. It's just not great. But because I've built up the credibility and I've done the work and I've made a lot of people happy with my work, people like the brand. They like it. Like, it's funny, like my wife even likes it to the point where she wears the t-shirt all over the place. She's like, I just like it. I think it's cool. I'm like, all right, cool. I'm cool with that. If my wife thinks my brand is cool, then that's awesome. But I'm really just trying to convey the message that you are the brand. It's not your logo. Now, having a good logo doesn't hurt, but a podcast can help you share your voice, which ultimately is what's going to help people buy from you. So for a good example, my podcast, I partner with two of my good friends who own a coffee shop and a coffee business, opossumcoffeecompany.com. And because people feel like they know John and Savannah, I think that it increases the desire to support them. If it was just the Possum logo or Loosedale Coffee Shop, there's nothing wrong with that. People are still probably going to stop in and get a coffee, but we're adding an element. Like, not only am I stopping in because I need the caffeine, I like the taste of the coffee, but I'll also just have this connection with this couple who are putting their heart and soul into this business. And it's like, if you're scaling it, or you're putting it on a point system, you got points for the taste, you got points for the effect. And hey, I'm going to give you 2 extra bonus points, purchase points, if you will, for just being out there and letting me laugh with you every now and again. So sharing your story. Your brand is actually not your logo. It's not even your name. It's you. And a good example of that, I think Buc-ee's, the gas station, has an absolutely ridiculous logo. Not going to say it's bad, because it's good because of what their business is. They have made their name and logo cool. If they would have just started and been a not so great just podunk gas station, Buc-ee's would not mean anything to anybody, but it means something to people because of what they created. So just remember that. And I think a podcast can really help you with that. And you can create evergreen marketing assets. This is a really good one that doesn't get utilized enough with my clients, and I need to really bump up this as a priority. But let's just say you are a dentist and you guys are talking about, how to avoid cavities. And say you talk about it for 7 minutes. That is a 7-minute snippet that you can take and make it a standalone YouTube video that can then be embedded onto your website in a blog or in a, frequently asked questions, how to avoid cavities. I don't know, just think of a bunch, like 5 different topics. Like these are individual topics that you can use as standalone videos, and they're evergreen because if we're talking about a festival that's coming to town, well, that's not evergreen. That's happening this weekend. And then that clip is like done forever. But if we're talking about cavities and we're talking about, how to get your house inspected or whatever we're talking about on your business page, and it's something that is always going to be true or going to be true at least for a couple of years or decades, then that can be taken out as an individual video that would cost you time and money to make on its own. So evergreen marketing assets is a really big one that I myself even overlook a lot, and I'm going to do better and not do that. That does it for today's video. If you want help starting your podcast, you can always reach out to me, of course, but I have a course down in the description that you can purchase. It's heavily discounted, and I honestly, I have my own business. I have my own work going on. I don't necessarily need to make money on this course. I just have a lot of people asking me these questions. So I decided to put it all into a course. And because you're watching this video, I'm giving you specifically 25% off. So make sure you go down there, copy the promo code, then go into the link, go to checkout, whatever. Oh, and there's a free book. If you are just a reader and maybe you don't have the money for the course at the moment and you just want to get the free book, that's totally free. Click the link, opt in to get the book, and then it will be emailed to you. Subscribe maybe if you like this kind of content, and I will see you next time. Peace.